Redditors who were in the background of famous photos. What photo were you in and how'd you get there? My friends took me to an amusement park for my birthday one year. Turns out that I share a birthday with a ride in the park, and that year was the 20th anniversary of that ride. We ended up in the first car sitting behind the dude who sat in the first car on the first run 20 years prior. We were in the newspaper in a pretty big color photo. My face was not making a cool expression. Back in 1982, my girlfriend, now wife, and I drove by a movie set being filmed outside of Pittsburgh, PA at I think the Carnegie Museum. It turned out to be the wedding scene in Flashdance. At one point you can see my 1978 maroon Olds 98 driving off towards Monroeville. My claim to movie fame, and I'm sticking to it. You can see my house in Gervais, the invention of lying. I try not to let fame affect my life too much, but sometimes it's difficult. My dad was the third person behind RFK when he was assassinated. He ended up in one or two pictures of the scene after, but not any of the most famous photos. Watched a documentary on HBO about it about 22-25 years ago with him. Was very surreal. He was pointing out people in the crowd during the rally and telling me what they were doing that day. I was cast as a background extra in the movie Brokeback Mountain. It was the fireworks scene where Heath Ledger ends up fighting with these hillbillies. It was pretty cool. He was about 3 people away. He was super cool too. There were some little kids on set and he was always making sure that everything was okay for them. We shot until 5 a.m. We'll never forget that night. Not really famous per se, but I'm in an 80s photo at Disneyland that they made for Viewmasters. Remember the little wheel things where you slide the circle of pictures in, then pull the handle down to view the next slide? It's just the back of my curly head and my mom next to me. But we know it's us. My mom remembers the photographer being on the boat. I think it was the old Pinocchio ride. This is as famous as I've gotten. My uncles were married at midnight on my. It was at City Hall and they were married by the mayor. I held the rings. It was famous because the 1st of January gay marriage was legalized in our city. There were lots of reporters. They were in many magazines. They had a 2-page photo in Time magazine. I was in the crease. Thankfully. I'm blurry and have a staple in me. I don't know that it's famous per se, but currently the Rennick Gallery at the Smithsonian American Art Institute is doing an exhibit about art at Burning Man, and there's a picture of my naked butt in there. I was part of an orchestra who performed in front of a giant lead tree, and I had on an article of clothing that left my posterior exposed. I had no idea until one of my friends saw it and texted me. Did you know that your butt's in the Smithsonian? That's my new fun fact. My grandfather is a volunteer fireman in a town of about 200 people and was once asked to be an extra in a movie about a car crash. He still has the VHS and likes to point out at a certain point that those feet running down that hill are his feet. He's pretty humble for a movie star. I worked at a bistro similar to Hooters in college. I did a photoshoot with a group of girls in various costumes holding hamburgers. One of the photos ended up on a billboard in my hometown a year later. I lived 4 hours away when they opened a new location. I can only imagine how many people saw it who knew me. That's how my mom found out I worked there. She wasn't mad. In fact, she was so proud that went to check it out. I was also on the flip books things on the table where it was a staged car wash with 2 other girls. Very risque as I was sudsing them up with bubbles. My mom was so proud she asked the waitress if she could have the picture because it was her daughter. I've always wondered if that waitress thought she was crazy. My mom doesn't even know what I majored in college, but she does fondly tell this story to friends as a crown achievement of mine. I do not have any of the photos. I wish I did so I could tell my kids that I used to be a babe before they ruined my body. Haha. If you Google the movie Four Christmases, I'm in one of the main stills used for the movie. It's the still from the church scene during the promotion of the movie. I saw my face all over the place. The photo is literally just Vince Vaughn, Reese with a spoon, and myself clear as day in between them. No idea why they used that still so much, but it's pretty funny and it's eternally one of my favorite Christmas pictures. My dad worked for Wendy's corporate. They needed a few extras to sit with Dave Thomas in a Forbes magazine photo shoot. It was not only in the magazine, but in Wendy's restaurants all over the country. I had friends traveling on vacation tell me they saw me across the country. So I was in that. My grandfather was a pilot and he was stationed where they were filming 30 Seconds Over Tokyo. He is in scenes with Spencer Tracy and Robert Mitchum, and did all of the scenes flying B-25s. Offset he would play poker with them and the director. One night, Judy Garland showed up and she sat next to my grandfather while he played poker with Spencer freaking Tracy. Not me, but my family is in a lot of those famous photos of the Berlin Wall on November 9, 1989. My dad worked for the US government and we were living in Berlin at the time. I'm not in the photos because I was born about a year and a half before and my sister stayed home with me. Also not really famous, but a radio station once used my photo to advertise their upcoming festival. I used to work security at concerts in college. Because well, I'm tall. I was catching crowd surfers at a Foo Fighters and Weezer show. Well, about 2 years later, a friend asks me if I was at that show. I said yeah. And it was awesome. I was right in front of the stage. And had Dave Grohl and others in reach. She then revealed that she knew. Because there is a picture of David Grohl from the concert on the Foo Fighters website. And I'm looking up at him like a huge doofus. Like it's a really stupid looking picture of me. Edit. I won't share it. And I don't know if it's still on their site. I prefer my anonymity. My mom is in the background of the San Antonio Spurs NBA Memorial Day miracle shot from Sean Elliott. You can clearly see her shouting and cheering. It hangs proudly at the AT&T Center, and on special occasions when I get to go I always walk with her to the photo and have her explain what she was feeling, the energy of the stadium. Not a famous photo, but my mom was on the front of the Tulip Festival brochure, Holland, MI, in the early 90s. She was watching a craftsman at his booth. She had gone to the festival the year before. My brother discovered it when he was browsing the rack of travel brochures they have in hotel lobbies. Mom never knew she was in this candid shot, as she had passed away a few months prior. She would have gotten a kick out of that. I was sitting at home on a Valentine's Day with my girlfriend at the time. After a nice dinner, all of a sudden, both of our phones started ringing and getting text after text. We let the first couple ring as we were having a nice night. All the texts and calls were to let me know that I was on the Hooters episode of Undercover Boss. While I was on vacation in Dallas, they were giving out free wings that were sitting in a cardboard to-go box for several hours in the hot sun. I remember signing a waiver. They said it was for a commercial. I was like 6 blocks from Hooters, just walking across a street. As you can imagine, I can hardly leave the house anymore. Anytime I'm at a restaurant, everybody is like, oh my god, you're that guy. The paparazzi is awful. It's not always easy becoming famous. Not exactly a famous photo, but my dad has had second row season tickets to the Red Wings for over 30 years. Apparently, when my dad took me to a game as a toddler, a photographer got a picture of some players celebrating a goal right in front of our seats, and you can see my dad holding me above his head like a trophy in the background. That picture got printed on tickets for the next season and put on the cover of a Detroit magazine. Too bad we lost the picture a long time ago and I'd have no clue how to find it again. When the Pope visited my city, I was on the front page of several newspapers the next day in a huge close-up. I was like 10 years old at the time, so was kinda school famous for about a week. I'm imagining a story that you told your principal that you couldn't come to school because you were sick. Then he sees your picture on the front page of the newspaper visiting with the Pope. You attempt to evade with several increasingly improbable denials, before admitting the truth and being given some sort of ironic yet wholesome detention activity. The whole thing is wrapped up in half an hour. Well, it was my first day at college and I noticed a bunch of people gathered together by a door. Turns out people were mad because they were finally gonna let black folks go to the school. They was yelling stuff and giving Em a real hard time as they walked down the aisle. The one lady dropped her purse. I ran over to give it back to her and bam, they took a photo. My face was right there in the background. It was all over the place after that. My late father-in-law was a Marine after World War II. Stationed in Paris. He was detailed to the US ambassador's bodyguard. And I have a famous official photo of de Gaulle and the ambassador reviewing the troops. With my FIL right behind. Pretty cool. Also, I was photographed shaking hands with Martin Luther King when I was 5.5. The 20th of September, 1958. At a Harlem book signing. The picture would have been on the front page of the Harlem paper the next day. Except that a woman behind us in line plunged a letter opener into MLK's chest, almost killing him. My father received the big view camera negative from the paper's photographer some time later. The assassination attempt made my handshake less newsworthy. Considering the photo is above the entrance to my university's student center. It's not really that famous. But I was cheering at a football game and didn't know someone was taking the picture. A while later my grandparents visit and see it. Grandpa. Hey. There you are? Me what? Where? In that picture there me. Oh. 0. So I am. Whoa. I had no idea. I must walk by that at least twice a day.